Hello, this is Dr. Della Welch again. I've given one lecture concerning offer, acceptance, and consideration. And then lecture 2 was on some of the defenses. And then in this lecture, we'll go on and discuss third-party beneficiaries. But before I do that, I wanted to go by way of review and talk a little more about the statute of frauds. As you know, that this is the rule that requires a writing in order for a contract to be enforceable. And one of the exceptions is part performance can be an exception to the statute of frauds. And usually part performance is to the extent of the performance. Suppose I'm a big contractor and I order 50 cars from General Motors and they thought I said 15, and so they deliver 15 cars. If the agreement was simply oral, then the contract would be enforceable only to the extent of performance, which is the 15 cars. Also, there is another exception called the main purpose doctrine. If I call orally and make an agreement that's not in writing, but the main purpose that I'm making it is for my benefit, then that will be an exception to the statute of frauds. There's also the parole evidence rule, P-A-R-O-L. And what this says is that if there is a contract and the last sentence of the agreement is, this is the complete agreement of the parties, that's often called a merger clause, and it's signed by both parties, then that is a final agreement. Suppose I go to Pasadena and I want to buy a car, and the salesman in Pasadena said, oh, this car has only been driven by the little old lady from Pasadena, and it's a used car, and he wants $5,000 for it. And before I signed the agreement, he said, I'm going to put in a new digital radio. And I say, well, shouldn't we have that agreement in writing? And he said, oh, no, I'm an honest car salesman. Forget about that. So he doesn't put in the fact I want a new digital radio. And then, as I'm signing at the same time, he said, I will put in new interior. And I said, shouldn't we put that in the agreement? He says, oh, no, I'm a car salesman. I'm very honest. And so I sign the agreement, and he signs the agreement. But when I come and pick up the car, I say, where is the new digital radio? And he says, parole evidence rule. I have an agreement that says this is the complete agreement of the parties, and there's no mention of a digital radio. And I said, what about the new interior you promised at the same time that I signed? And he says the same result, parole evidence rule. You can't have these little side agreements come in to contradict the terms of a written agreement. Outside terms can come in to clarify the terms of agreement. Suppose I order stewing hens. Well, do I really want stewing hens, or do I want fryers, or what kind of hen do I want? So you could use usage of trade, past dealings under the Uniform Commercial Code to clarify the meaning of a particular term. Also, we talked last time about mutual mistake. Suppose the parties are farmers and they both agree to buy this cow, Rose of Avalon, and they both contemplate that the cow is sterile. And in fact, she is fertile. Well, that's a mutual mistake. And based on that, the agreement will be discharged. But suppose it's a unilateral mistake. Suppose I buy a home in Orange County and I'm mistaken as to the value. I think it's worth $900,000. Well, the person selling it, they think it's worth a different amount. Well, after I buy it, I find it's worth $700,000. That was a unilateral mistake, and that cannot be used as a defense. Now, if we look at the contract, we'll see another party, a third party, not the offeror, not the offeree, but a third party. And that raises issues of a third party beneficiary. That is a person that a contract between two other parties intends to benefit, and such a party need not be contemplated at contract formation. An example that's very good is, let's say that A is a builder, and he is going to build an office building for B, and B is going to pay A $1 million. Then what happens is B gets a call from his son C and says, I'm going to be moving to Orange County, and I'm now a new doctor, and so I want to have that office building that you agreed to have be payment of $1 million to A, and then A was going to build the building. Well, first you ask, suppose there's an agreement, and B calls up C and said, yes, I will give you that building, and I will tell A to give that building to you after he builds it. Well, you say, is C intended, or is he incidental? Well, it appears he's intended because he was specifically named. Is he a creditor? Is he a creditor or a donee? A creditor beneficiary, that is relationship of discharging a debt. And there was no debt between the son and the father in the example I give you. Or is he a donee? It looks like he was a donee because there was an intent to make a gift on C of the building. And so C is an intended third party donee beneficiary. Now let's suppose that B and C get into a fight, and let's say that B says to A, don't give my son C that building. Well, you have to ask, have his rights vested? Vested means that the right can no longer be taken away, or the building cannot be taken away. And there's various rules you can check in your various jurisdictions. Some would say when the contract is made, it cannot be taken away. Others would say, no, there has to be some material reliance, such as C, buying office equipment, or things like that. So, to review, an intended beneficiary is the named and intended person that receives the benefit of the rights in the contract. The intended beneficiary stands in the shoes of the promisee in suits against the promisor, and may sue both the promisor and the promisee. So C, if his rights are vested, could sue A and B.